Chapter 40. The President of Esthar. The lunar cry had affected all of the planet. None so much as Esthar though. They had been right there, taking the brunt of the force. And it showed in the state of the city. What had once been a bustling, peaceful metropolis was now a battlefield. The Estharian army had been released into the streets so as to protect the citizens from the monsters that were now running loose. The population, meanwhile, had retreated into their homes and buildings to escape the danger. There was an air station in Esthar that was prepared for Ragnarok's landing. When Selphie parked it on the tarmac over the building, it was immediately converged upon by a group of technicians that had been instructed to repair and service the old ship that hadn't seen a human in 17 years and was only running by a fuel cell they had stolen from another building. There wasn't any sort of escort for them. One of the men handed Squall a transmission from the palace that apologized, but all the soldiers were busy protecting the citizenry and the president refused to order a civilian into danger to bring them somewhere they knew how to reach. Squall understood, and the 6 of them began making their way towards the presidential palace. They needed to fight their way through the monsters roaming the streets. However, they had a much easier time of it than the Esthar soldiers. Even though Squall had no weapon, they were still fine because the others made up for his lack of strength. The presidential palace was guarded by an entire regiment of guards that were keeping the monsters at bay. As Squall and the others approached, the man in charge ran up to them. He deliberately put his gun away as he approached. "Commander Leonhardt," he saluted him respectfully. "Please, right this way, sir. The president is waiting for you." Squall fell into step behind him. Rinoa was walking very close to him by his order. She was instructed not to leave his side for even a moment. They rode back up through the strange Esthar lift to the presidential wing. It was almost peaceful here, despite the clear glimpse they had of the entire chaotic city from almost all directions. The others walked through the quiet halls talking softly. The captain had left them to go to the president's suite on their own since he had soldiers to command. "Will we be able to fight our way out if we have to?" Rinoa asked Squall softly. She was nervous being here. More than that though, she felt guilty. They were only so weary of Esthar because of her. "They can't even handle the monsters down there. It will be too easy," Squall assured her. He felt at a disadvantage without his weapon, but he could pick one up from a down soldier if he had to. He was best at a gunblade, but he could use a standard saber or gun separately. The presidential suite was protected by the royal guard. They saluted Squall and the others respectfully as they approached. "Commander Leonhardt, welcome. The president is waiting for you, sir. Please go right in." Squall didn't even pause as he walked through the door. It was the first floor of the president's rooms and was just as bright and advanced as the rest of Esthar. To the point that it was almost blinding. There was a large hollow map in the center of the room and 3 men. 2 wearing Estharian-style robes and 1 man in khaki pants and a blue dress shirt. The 2 robed men turned as the others stepped through the door. Squall stopped, crossing his arms as he looked at them. Big, blonde, blue-eyed. He had aged noticeably, but not badly. He smiled brightly at the 6 of them like he had been waiting for them for a long time. The other man's long hair was covered under his cap. But he was still easily recognizably because he had barely aged at all. There were a few wrinkles around his face, but his expression and mannerisms had changed little. Then that 3rd man by the far window must be. What was wrong with this country? The blond man walked around the hollow table and moved towards the 3rd man. He was saying something Squall couldn't hear from the other end of the room into a communication device with very expressive arms. The blonde man didn't speak to him because he couldn't. But after so long a mute, he didn't need to speak to be understood. The third man turned and smiled at him. The black of his hair hadn't dimmed through the years, but there were more lines on his face than Squall remembered from the last time he had seen him. But he still smiled brightly. He still stood with that careless posture. "Oh, yeah, sure," he said, before hanging up the radio. He nodded to the blonde before turning to the seats that had come to stand before them. His eyes focused immediately on Squall. There was something there in his face that Squall neither cared nor wanted to decipher. He met that gaze with a stony one of his own. His smile widened and he rushed around the holomap. Overeager. Like a puppy. Breathing a little hard from the jog, he looked between them with a bright light in his face. No. Not them. Just Squall. He was looking at Squall very particularly, and Squall didn't appreciate it at all. "President Lawyer," Squall said deliberately formally. Laguna Lawyer said nothing. He continued to stare at him for a long minute as Quiros and Ward came around to join him. Squall's eye started twitching as he fought the urge to hit him. What the hell was he looking at? "Laguna," Quiros said sharply, reminding him of something with a single word. Laguna cleared his throat, looking away. "Right, oh, man. Sorry, guess I was just a little..." He swallowed and looked at Squall again. A little more purposefully this time. "Been wanting to meet you. You guys are the ones who were inside our heads, right? Elone told me on the lunar base. Man, you guys are something else. It was like there were some kind of waves running through my head. They gave us so much power during battle. Like, unbelievable. I can't believe that came from humans. We always kind of thought there were some kind of fairies flying over us." "What's this we?" Quiros asked, looking at him dully. "The fairy idea was yours alone. Don't bring us into your stupidity." Laguna laughed at the insult. These three were so close that it wasn't an insult at all. He looked back at Squall and nodded to him. "So, I'm Laguna. I guess you already knew that. President Laguna, Lawyer of Star. It's a real pleasure to meet you." Squall met his gaze calmly. "Commander Squall Leonhardt of Balam Garden." "Leonhardt?" Laguna repeated breathlessly. He continued staring. Squall resisted the urge to snap in annoyance. "It's nice to meet you," Rinoa interjected, smiling nervously, but wanting to take Laguna's attention from Squall. "I'm Rin." "Sorceress," Rinoa heartily. "Ah, you're the sorceress," Laguna beamed at her like he might actually be happy to meet her. "I really must apologize for Dr. Odin. He's a genius, but he's still an ass. I would never have demanded an innocent woman sealed away like..." "Wait, did you say heartily?" "Yeah, why?" Rinoa tilted her head, looking at him through disturbingly familiar brown eyes. Wow. It was really a day for his past to come back and hit him hard. He shook his head. "No, nothing. It's not important. It's nice to meet you, Rinoa." Laguna, who had been reaching out to shake Rinoa's hand, was suddenly stopped when Squall's gloved fist snapped around his wrist. A burning cold sensation traveled up his arm as Laguna hissed in pain. Squall deliberately pushed him back. "Do not touch her," he growled warningly before releasing his wrist. Laguna shook his hand, trying to force warm blood into the freezing limb.
Yeah, that's no problem. I get it. Laguna, you okay?
Kiros asked, frowning at Squall.
I'm fine,
he assured them, happy he had insisted his guards remain outside for this meeting.
I deserved that. Listen, Rinoa's safe from me. I promise. I have no desire to hurt her. Just the same, I don't trust you.
Squall glared him down warningly.
Don't touch her.
Laguna nodded quickly.
Yeah, of course. Sorry. Nice to meet you, Rinoa.
She nodded, smiling at him calmly. She felt safe having Squall right there. She knew he was being overprotective, but it felt nice all the same.
I'm sorry for Squall, President Lawyer,
Quistis said diplomatically, stepping forward to take over before her leader hurt Laguna.
He's dedicated to his job. I'm sure we can come to a peaceful resolution before long. I'm Quistis Treep. It's a pleasure.
Laguna nodded to her.
How's it going? I'm Selfie,
she announced, jumping in front of him.
I can't tell you how great it is to meet you. I feel like I know you already. Man.
She leaned in closer.
You still look cute even old. You know, just say the word, and I'm yours. You're my exception and Irvine already knows EEP.
Squall, rolling his eyes, pulled Selfie by the arm and pushed her towards a suddenly irritated Irvine who was glowering at the president.
Name's Irvine. And I don't accept an old fart as her exception. What up?
Zell waved at them.
I'm Zell. And I want to apologize for those two.
Laguna, smiling, nodded to each of them in turn.
It's a pleasure, everyone. If we weren't in a state of emergency, I'd talk to you some more, but... well, whatever. Let's talk. Squall,
Kiros deliberately and loudly cleared his throat. Laguna winced guiltily as his VP gave him a telling look.
You'll never get out of here if President Laguna starts talking. So why don't you just ask a question and he'll try to answer them?
Squall looked at Laguna coldly. Laguna chuckled in the face of it.
Man, you look way too serious. Whatever,
Squall said, uncrossing his arms and staring at Laguna eye to eye. The two men were the exact same height. Squall's gaze and his met directly. Rinoa looked between them, surprised. She had seen stronger men than Laguna cower in fear of that look. Yet he met it with a smile.
Before we get started,
Squall said immediately.
If we decide to leave, if we choose to decline your mission, will you let us go peacefully, or will I need to fight my way out?
Laguna laughed nervously.
Come on, man. Don't say it like that. I don't want to hurt you.
Zell, Irvine, and Selfie burst into laughter. Quistis hid her smile behind her hand. Squall's eyebrow raised and Rinoa choked down her own snickers.
Yeah, we wouldn't want that,
Squall said calmly. That was somehow more eerie than if he would have just denied the possibility outright. Laguna felt a tingle on his skin. It had been a while since he had fought with the buzzing, but he didn't think he had forgotten just how strong it was. How much stronger would it be coming from the man himself instead of through Laguna's weaker body? Somehow, his army didn't feel all that formidable any longer. Laguna cleared his throat.
I will apologize as many times as it takes. I think Dr. Odin overreacted. I have nothing against you, Rinoa. Why would I want to hurt any of you? You guys have saved our lives so many times. Without you, Ward would have.
Laguna shook his head, becoming suddenly serious.
Thanks. For everything. We owe you a lot.
The others seemed to relax at the admission. Except Squall. His eyes were still hard. Rinoa knew it wasn't because he was angry. It was because he was irritated at the way Laguna kept sneaking glances at his face. Squall just wanted to mission details. But even as he was opening his mouth to ask, Zell jumped in with his own question.
Yo, where's Sis? Where's Elone? Sis.
Laguna blinked.
We like to call her Sis,
Quistis explained simply.
It's what we called her growing up. Do you know where she is? We don't know if she made it back safely from space.
Laguna shook his head, frowning.
Our escape pod rescue team was a little too late. They put my safety on higher priority, so everyone else was picked up afterwards. By the time they got to her, Elone was taken into custody by Galbadia. We believe, based on our current information and deductions, that she's being held captive in the lunatic Pandora. Part of your mission will involve rescuing her.
Squall tried again to ask for said mission details. It was Selfie this time that cut him off.
What are you doing here, Sir Laguna?
She asked eagerly, making Irvine glare at him again. Laguna laughed at her name for him.
How did you get here?
She pressed eagerly despite Irvine.
Wanna know?
Laguna asked eagerly.
It's a bit of a long story. Let's hear it.
Selfie said eagerly.
You've lived such an interesting life, Sir Laguna. You really wanna hear?
Laguna looked at Squall as though for permission. Squall let out a breath. Whatever. He didn't want to hear it, but he really didn't want to hear Selfie complaining later. So he nodded once, permitting him to go on.
Okay. I'll tell you. Laguna,
Kiros warned again.
I know,
Laguna nodded.
I'll clip it as much as possible.
Kiros nodded, looking at Squall once before turning away. Squall's eyes narrowed. Why was everyone looking at him like that? It reminded him annoyingly of the way that Elone had looked at him the first time she saw him in the infirmary. But at least she had the right to do so.
You all know mostly what I've been doing all my life, right?
Laguna looked at Squall for confirmation. Squall nodded.
You were a silly Galbadian soldier. I didn't like your attitude at all.
Laguna flinched.
Ouch. You don't pull punches. You were inept and foolish. I don't know how you've lived this long, I assume a great deal of luck was involved.
Ward's shoulders were shaking as Kiros did his best to look away and fight back his laughter.
However,
Squall continued, eyes moving between them.
I understood the bond between the three of you. You changed after you went to Windhill. Yeah. I guess I did.
Laguna let out a sigh, thinking back.
I don't know how or when, but Elone was abducted by Esthar and you went on a journey to get her back. You traveled north to Shumi village and south to Edia's orphanage trying to get here. You wrote articles and appeared in a terrible movie to get by. Oh, yeah.
Laguna laughed, eyes shining brightly.
I forgot all about that, oh man. I wonder whatever happened to that movie? Think it was ever finished?
Kiros and Ward shrugged.
You were trying to get into Esthar,
Squall continued like he was giving a report.
I don't know how, but you got into Esthar and rescued Elon. I also don't know what happened after that. I had a lot of help along the way,
Laguna nodded, thinking back.
What I don't understand is, why are you the president?
Squall shook his head at the entire thing. It was baffling to him that anyone would make Laguna leader.
Guess I'll just fill in most of the blanks,
Laguna smiled.
It all starts back before I ever met Elon. When she was about 2, there was a massive manhunt for little girls in Esthar that extended all over the planet because of how much power Esthar had back then. They were looking for a successor for Esthar's then ruler, Sorceress Adele. Esthar soldiers came all the way to Windhill and El's parents resisted. They were killed on the spot. But Elon was spared. Afterwards, El was raised by Rain, who lived next door to her at the time. When I came, I got to know them both and
Laguna cleared his throat.
Well, there was another massive hunt for a successor again. I think the first one was killed when Adele became angry with her. I didn't know about it at the time. Kiros and I had gone to pick up Ward as he was coming over the mountains. While I was gone, El was taken. It's one of the most painful episodes of my life. When I was captured and put to work in the Pandora, they took me into Esthar. So when I broke out, I didn't have to go far to rescue her. To keep her safe, I sent her back to Windhill. It was shortly after that I got the message that Rain and El had died. But the people of Windhill hated me. They didn't want me to get El. So, instead of just telling me the truth, they sent El straight to an orphanage. She was raised there for.
Laguna trailed off as he looked over the others. He realized the implications of Quistis's earlier words and let out a long breath at the family unit gathered before him. Far more than comrades.
Why didn't you just go back to Windhill with her?
Squall asked, frowning.
I wanted to.
Laguna insisted passionately.
But I had to stay. I only came here to rescue Elon, but that wasn't the end of it. Like I said, I had a lot of help along the way. Not the least of which was by the resistance. Back then, Esthar was ruled by Sorceress Adele and the ingenious, yet inhumane Odin. He played with human lives and she let him because it made her more powerful. Both of them became interested in Elon after they found out about her special power. Even after I saved her, they both still wanted her. We couldn't just pack up and leave. Elon would still be in danger and we might end up having to come right back here. So, for better or worse, I stayed.
Laguna let out a long breath.
It was a long road. I ended up staying far longer than I intended. But all we needed was to get Odin under our control. That would be like cutting off Adel's arm. He didn't care about right or wrong. He only thought about his research. We finally got him by giving him a challenge to his brilliance. It was a device to seal magic. To seal sorceresses so no one could inherit her power but she couldn't be free to do what she wanted. If we could do that, maybe Adele could be defeated. And since I owed a big favor to the Adele resistance, I was able to work with all of them. There were two main problems that came up. First, stopping the crystal pillar in the lunatic Pandora from calling monsters from the moon and destroying Esthar like it had Sentra. And second, freeing Esthar from Adele's hands. We planned and planned for months. Based on my brilliant ideas, of course.
Laguna leaned his head back, caught up in his own memories.
He wasn't happy about it, but we convinced Odin to move the crystal pillar. We used his own sealing device as a threat. If Adele found out about it, she would kill him herself no matter how genius he was. So, with him on our side, we plotted the Pandora's course and set the drop point for a spot in the ocean. We let it go and goodbye. That dealt with our first problem and gave us the keys for dealing with the second. When Adele found out what we had done, she chased us down. We let her follow us to the sorceress memorial that she didn't even know about. We had built it far from Esthar so she couldn't find out before we could trap her.
Laguna dropped to his knees, subjugating himself before Adele. The woman was taller than two tall men, with bulging muscles that made her appear more like a man herself. Her long red hair twisted like a snake as she stalked forward angrily. Head to the ground as it was, Laguna didn't see the confusion in her eyes as she beheld him and all those behind him. She had thought she was chasing an enemy. Yet these people were bowing themselves to her as was appropriate.
What is going on?
Adele demanded to know angrily, her eyes flashing as she considered destroying these people just because. Laguna lifted his head, making sure not to look her in the eye. That was an easy way to die.
My great lady! We hunted down the culprit who moved the crystal pillar for you. Where?
Adele asked simply, her voice rumbling.
Inside there.
Laguna looked to the memorial like he might be afraid of it.
We would have attempted to capture him ourselves for your pleasure, but he's taken Lady Elone hostage. We dare not move for fear of harming the successor.
Adele glared up at the building. Stalking forward, her fingertips sparked dangerously. Laguna clenched his jaw in fear as he moved to follow after her. His idea to mention Elone had worked perfectly. Adele wasn't willing to risk the loss of such a valuable successor. He followed her into the building. All the technicians were gone now. The machines of the memorial were humming, ready to click on. It would only take an instant. Down through the control center and into the ceiling cage. Tiny Elone was standing inside, beating at the walls, clearly frightened. Adele stepped closer, then paused. Her eyes narrowed on the little girl struggling to get out. She flickered. Growling, she turned back to see Laguna subjugating himself behind her.
You think I would fall for such a trick?
She asked angrily. Laguna grinned, lifting his head back up again.
Of course. My plans are always perfect. Now.
Inside the control booth, Kiro slammed his hand down on the restraining device. The lightning struck Adele's very human body, freezing her in place. Laguna charged and slammed into her. She flew backwards. Straight into the cage and through Elone's hologram. Ward smacked his fist onto the second button. It took only a second. The cold sleep gas that burst into the seal was concentrated and powerful. It actually froze Adele in place. Laguna was breathing fast, staring at her. Waiting for her to reach out. To break free. Neither of which happened. She was trapped in a permanent cold sleep.
Adele was careless,
Laguna shrugged.
She may be a sorceress, but she was still human. We were successful. But, we couldn't keep such a dangerous sorceress around as a trophy. We had to do something. So we decided to send her far, far away. Some place no one would ever reach her and she could never get free from. A place where we could control everyone who got close to her and keep her locked away. Into outer space. We even used incredibly powerful anti-magic barriers to keep her locked up. We didn't really mean to, but we ended up accidentally blocking even radio waves across all of Gaia. But it kept her locked away. That about wraps up that part. The real work started afterwards. A fierce debate ensued about who should govern this country after Adele was gone. It was around then that I received the letter from Winhill telling me that Rain and Elle had died. Even as we were starting to return home, I suddenly had no home to go to. I really wasn't paying close attention while everyone made me up to be this great hero of the revolution. One thing led to another, and by the time I looked up from mourning, I was president. It was a mistake to send Elone back to Rain without me. Rain died. And Elone was sent to that orphanage. If I had only gone back, I might have at least been able to see Rain one last time. With my family gone, I just ended up staying. My job kept me busy. Kept my mind off of everything. Before I knew it, all this time had passed.
Laguna smiled at them gently, coming back to the present.
I've been hearing about Sorceress Edia for a while now. That broadcast Galbadia sent out came all this way and we got worried. We didn't know who she was or where she got her powers from. It made us little scared that maybe Adele had somehow managed to pass on her powers even in her seal. So I went up to the lunar base to make sure that everything was okay. While I was up there, I heard about their search for Elone. I found out about this afterward, but while I was here, Elone was being raised at that orphanage. The owners of that orphanage were Sid and Edia Kramer. You know them better than I do, of course. They found out about Elone's power and decided to take her into hiding because of a premonition that Edia had. The Kramers prepared a big ship just to accommodate her. Gracious of them, hey? I owe them a lot. After a while, the ship turned into another orphanage and Elle helped Edia look after the kids. She said her life on the ship was a happy one, but who knows? I don't know how she could have been happy on a ship. She was on that ship for over 10 years. After I found out that Elone was still alive, that Galbadia was searching for a girl named Elone with a strange power, I sent my own men to search for her. I was trying to be quieter about it than they were. One of my fleet picked her up from her ship, saving her from the Galbadians. It was honestly just pure luck that they did find her. I gave the order to have her follow me out into space. I figured if Sorceress Edia was going to burn the world to find her, I'd just take her off the world.
Laguna smiled gently.
I still can't believe it when she found me. Little Elle was all grown up. She was just as surprised to see where I had ended up as I was to see her. She told me everything.
Laguna, Kiros cut in warningly.
I know. I know.
Laguna ran a hand through his hair.
Sorry. It's just a bit of an emotional thing for me. What about Rain?
Rinoa asked, curious and sad.
What happened to her? How did she die? Rain's story.
Laguna swallowed past a rather thick lump in his throat.
No. I can't. I'm sorry. It's too much for me to remember right now.
Rinoa gasped.
You still love her after all this time?
Laguna smiled at her sadly.
I've loved Rain from the moment I met her. I can still see her face perfectly when I close my eyes. Sorry. Some other time.
Rinoa nodded, feeling guilty about reminding him of something so painful. She just couldn't believe that he would still be so sad about her death after all this time. Laguna turned up to gaze again at Squall. That look was back in his eyes and Squall glared at him, wishing he would just stop.
Explain the mission to defeat Ultimecia,
he said immediately now that he finally had a chance to speak. Laguna laughed once without humor.
Straight to the heart of the matter, hey? Just like a workaholic seed. It's the only reason I'm here.
Laguna flinched.
Yeah.
He straightened his spine, clearing his throat.
Well, let's get to it then. Not gonna lie, this isn't actually my plan. I mean, I approve of it and I helped, but I'm not the one who came up with it. Then who?
Rinoa asked.
Is it my turn?
Squall turned at that voice. That accent. So arrogant. Squall hated that voice. Odin walked into the room behind the seats, his ugly neck thing bobbing. Squall growled at him angrily, his hand reaching for a gun blade that wasn't here.
Yeah?
Laguna nodded at him. His voice wasn't exactly welcoming.
Make it short and easy to understand. I will talk however I want.
Odin snapped. He waved Laguna off.
Egg. Sorceress Edia told me everything. Sorceress Ultimecia comes from Z future to possess Z sorceresses of present day. Meaning she leaves her body in Z future and sends only her consciousness here. Does that sound familiar to you?
Squall frowned because it sounded intimately familiar.
It's like when Elone sends our consciousness back to the past. F. You're a smart one.
Odin glared back at him.
My first guess was that someone in Z future with an ability like Elone was sending Z sorceress back here to our time. But no. That is not Z answer. So what is? How does Z sorceress come back to this time? You want to hear how?
Odin looked at Squall eagerly. Squall bit back the biting comment on his tongue.
Please, do tell,
he said dully.
Egg.
Odin twitched eagerly.
I surprise you now. It is because of me, Odin. Yes. Haha.
Laguna and Squall rolled their eyes at the same time and Rinoa chuckled behind her hand. Neither of which action discouraged the doctor.
I researched Elone's power long ago. I made out a pattern from Z electric current running through Elone's brain when she's using her power and when she's not. Once Z pattern was determined, it was easy to mechanize. I've never used it successfully, but I am close. It may only be a toy right now, but in Z time of Ultimecia, it is an impressive working machine. Which means there is a machine which imitates Elone's power. It is I who made Z first model of that machine. I named Z machine junction machine Elone and it can be used in conjunction with a GF. It is a wonderful thing to know that my invention is used in Z future. Junction machine Elone,
Squall frowned.
Yeah, so he's pretty much responsible for about 90% of our problems,
Laguna pointed to the little man.
I honestly forget why I keep him around sometimes. So Sorceress Ultimecia came to know about Elone from that machine,
Squall summarized.
And El became Ultimecia's target in this time. You can try to blame Odin if you want. It's kind of useless though. He doesn't feel human emotions. You want to go outside?
Odin demanded to know angrily.
You want to fisticuffs? No? Okay then. We continue Z story. There is one way to defeat Ultimecia. She only sends her consciousness back here. In that, she is untouchable. You must kill her in person. In her own time. In Z future. There is nothing we can do unless we go to Z future. Of course, there is no way to just jump to Z future under normal circumstances. But don't despair. There is still a way. You want to know how? Odin, I will kill you for my own pleasure,
Squall threatened calmly. It was like the doctor didn't even hear him.
Ultimecia plans to compress time. Compressing time was magic, what good will it do for Z sorceress to do such a thing? There may be many reasons, but it doesn't matter. They are her own, and what is important is that she plans to do it at all. There is only one way to compress time. A person must exist in 3 different times at once. Normally, this is completely impossible, but Ultimecia has found a way. She, of course, exists in Z future. To then exist in this time, she takes over Z body of a sorceress from Z present. That is 2 simultaneous points in different times. She needs only one more. There is no equivalent machine in this time to take her back. So, in order to do so, she must have Elone. Only Elone can take her further into Z past to complete the 3rd time point. That is why she is desperately seeking her. To defeat her, we must take advantage of Elone's power. There are 2 sorceresses in our time. Sorceress Rinoa and Sorceress Adele. Of Z2, Adele has not yet awakened. She has been in stasis too long. It would take days to wake her completely. We are on borrowed time now. Once regeneration is completed, neither Laguna nor I will be safe. Sorceress Adele is probably in Z final stages of deep sleep awakening inside Z lunatic Pandora. Adele is considerably more powerful than Sorceress Rinoa. Ultimecia will want to possess Adele if Adele wakes up. That will be a horrible event. Adele is a horrible sorceress. And if Adele's consciousness should win over Ultimecia, Adele will be powerful enough to destroy this entire world. So, we must use Sorceress Rinoa to inherit Adele's powers, forcing Ultimecia to choose her instead. With her inside Rinoa, the world will at least be safe from Adele and we can use our plan.
Which is? Squall asked pointedly. Odin nodded.
First, go to Z lunatic Pandora. Elone will be held captive inside so Ultimecia can have her immediately after Adele awakens. So, rescue her first. Then kill Sorceress Adele before Z awakening process is completed. Then we will be left with Rinoa as the only sorceress of this era. Then we just wait for Ultimecia to possess Rinoa. It shouldn't take long. When she does, it's Elone's turn. Elone will send Rinoa back to Z past with Ultimecia. Elone will have to send Rinoa and Ultimecia inside another sorceress she knows in Z past. Edia or Adele? That's up to Elone and it doesn't matter. Once Ultimecia is in Z past, she'll use Z time compression magic. I don't know what kind of effect that will have on Z world, but it won't be pretty. Once Elone feels the magic starting, she'll cut Rinoa and Ultimecia off from Z past. Rinoa will come back to this time. Ultimecia will go back to her time. The magic will be slow acting, but it will work. That will be left as Z time compressed world. Past, present, and future will all get mixed together. That is your chance. You will move Z rough Z time compression towards Z future. And once you are out of Z compression, that will be Ultimecia's place. I'm sure I don't need to tell you what to do after that. There you have it,
Laguna said, looking back at Squall with a sort of smile.
I don't really understand it, but Odin is a genius after all. He has a very greedy reason to save the world too. Specifically, he can't exist in time compression either. So I'm willing to bet on his plan. What do you say? Will you do it?
Squall looked over to Quistis. She smiled, stepping forward.
Of course Seed is not shy about danger. There is, however, the cost of this mission. Name it,
Laguna smiled, unconcerned. Quistis laughed.
Oh, that's not my place. You'll need to speak with Sue. She's in charge of prices. I'm sure she'll be very vigorous in negotiations.
Laguna hesitated, blinking.
Can Esthar please still be standing after we pay up? That's up to Sue,
Quistis smiled sweetly.
I'll deal with that,
Kiros said simply.
I'm sure we can work something out.
Squall. Quistis looked to him. Squall regarded Laguna for a long moment. Laguna was smiling hopefully, but, unlike so many people before him, he could still meet Squall's eyes even while he was glaring.
Let's get something straight right now,
Squall said, his voice low and dangerous.
If I have to come after Rinoa again because of you, things will be very different. I will burn this city to the ground whether you give her up peacefully or not.
Laguna flinched back.
Come on, man. I didn't order that. Odin did. I wouldn't have taken her. Then you better make sure it doesn't happen again. I will destroy everything without blinking. Do you understand me? Yeah, of course,
Laguna nodded quickly.
She's safe from us. Don't worry about a thing.
Selfie, grinning, leaned in close to Rinoa.
You hear that? He'd be willing to commit mass genocide for you. I know. It's so romantic.
Rinoa sighed dreamily, leaning against Squall's arm.
Romantic?
Zell looked at her like she was crazy.
Police, woman.
Squall looked at Rinoa and she beamed up at him. Laguna's eyes moved between their gazes, frowning as understanding came over him. Oh. Far more than friends.
Hey, Squall, I didn't mean anything by it,
Laguna assured him again, his voice soft.
I wouldn't have taken her, even if she wasn't with you. I won't punish someone for crimes they didn't commit. The second I heard, I sent word to release her. It just so happens that you got there first.
Squall stared at him another long moment before nodding.
Very well. We accept the job. Really?
Laguna brightened.
All right. Yes. Let's go. We'll need to get aboard the Ragnarok. That will be the only way to get into the Pandora. We'll do our final briefing in there.
Snickering, he sent them a confidential grin.
I always wanted to ride that thing. Plus the name sounds so cool. Laguna, please act your age,
Kiros told him calmly.
It's embarrassing. Is what Ward would say.
Ward nodded along. Laguna shrugged, laughing.
It's all good. Come on, Seeds. The technicians should have finishing repairing, refueling, and rearming by now. Hey, Laguna. Don't forget. Oh. Right.
Laughing, Laguna smacked his head.
It almost slipped my mind. I'm not going to be sending you in just like that. I have some gifts for you. Come on, this way.
Grinning, Laguna led everyone from his room. The guards at the door saluted him formally as he walked past. Down the hall, past the lift, onward deeper into the palace. He took them to a more normal lift, normal for Esthar, that just took them down a few floors. Then onward to a room with a locked door and 2 guards on either side of it.
President Lawyer.
The men jumped to attention.
Morning, guys,
Laguna waved cheerfully.
Come on in, Seeds. I spared absolutely no expense on this stuff.
The armory that had been prepared just for them took everyone's breath away. They all gasped in pleasure like it was the most beautiful sight in the world, including Rinoa. Multiple glass cases on their own private plinths surrounded by all sorts of gear and, in the very center, a large, thin box that was closed with the Estharian royal seal on the cover.
Come on in,
Laguna invited them forward.
Let me show you the highlights. First up, you're probably familiar with this.
From a large glass case filled with many similar such things, Laguna lifted a tiny ball about the size of a pinky nail. It was, Squall remembered dimly, very similar to the one Piet had pressed against him on the lunar base.
This is Odin's newest magic capsule. The latest model,
Laguna said, smiling at the tiny thing.
It takes up a fraction of the space, holds 6 times the magic contents, and comes with this handy carrying case so you don't have to lug them about in your pockets.
From beside the case, Laguna pulled out what looked like a miniature pencil case. It flicked open and there were multiple spots inside for the tiny Odin capsules.
I've got every magic type you could possibly want,
Laguna said, pointing to the next case where lines of full Odin capsules were organized by spells.
High-level magic, all of it. High level.
Quistis gasped, coming in closer.
But Odin capsules can't hold high-level magic. Well, not the older models,
Laguna laughed.
We've been collecting magic for years for Odin to study. I figure you all can put it to much better use. Firaga, Blizzaga, Thundaga. Those are pain, flare. Oh, you get the point. Help yourselves to whatever. But, first.
Grinning, Laguna moved to the next gadgets.
We've got the next generation of communication devices that we just finished a few weeks ago. They can act over vast distances. Better than that, you can speak using video, not just sound. Cool, hey? There's 6 of them, enough for each of you. Go ahead, take one. They're yours, free and clear.
Rinoa picked up the 2 Laguna was holding out to her. She beamed and passed one to Squall as she turned it on. It looked almost like a PDA, but it functioned like a communicator. Squall turned it over, impressed. His face didn't show it.
Like it?
Laguna smiled as Zell leaned over the magic capsules.
It gets better. Come on over here. It took me a while to gather the materials for these.
He pressed a button, releasing the lid from the first glass case. Irvine was already coming in close, his eyes wide at the beauty of what he was seeing.
The height of Estharian technology,
Laguna said, coming around and smiling at the way Irvine was ogling the shotgun.
Mithril, moonstones, and star fragments with dino bones for strength. There is no match for this baby in range, accuracy, or raw strength.
Near tears, Irvine lifted the gleaming silver gun from its blue cushion. It fit just right into his hands, the smooth body practically arousing him.
Plus,
Laguna reached around and pulled the drawer out from under the case.
Pulse ammo. Homemade here in Esthar. Packs a magical and physical punch at the same time. You can one-shot just about anything with this.
Irvine couldn't stop staring at the gun.
Is this mine? All yours. I call it the Exeter.
Laguna grinned.
Talk to me later and I'll hook you up with a sniper rifle, too. I hear you're the best sharpshooter in Valum Garden.
Irvine couldn't step away. Which was fine. Laguna moved on without him to the next case. Selfie pushed forward eagerly, already recognizing the nunchaku shape on the blue satin pillow. She almost didn't wait for Laguna to open the case before grabbing them. She gasped at their gorgeous red body tipped by 3, gleaming, blue-pronged blades on each end and connected by a gleaming silver chain.
Strange vision,
Laguna introduced.
I've heard if you're good enough, you can swing them around so fast you hypnotize your opponent. Those are curse spikes too, so plenty of bang for your gill. It's so lightweight,
Selfie admired, swinging it around gently just to get a feel for it. The vision swept around her gracefully as she laughed in delight.
If you'll follow me over here,
Laguna said, directing the others past her.
You'll find, Miss Treep, that we've gone out of our way to provide you with the best whip that can be crafted. Made of Marlborough tentacles and curse spikes, it's the absolute, most powerful of whips. We call it Save the Queen.
Laguna opened the next glass case for her and Quistis sighed in delight at the golden piece of art resting like a coiled viper just waiting to strike. She reached out to stroke the firm leather. Then picked it up and purred at the weight.
Thank you, President Lawyer,
she breathed, caressing the whip.
It's absolutely beautiful. You're welcome,
Laguna beamed.
And oh. Yeah. Those are yours, Zell.
Unwilling to wait for Laguna to open the case for him, Zell had jumped the line to grab his new gloves from the box. The red and black gauntlets had gleaming fury stones built into the knuckles. They accepted fire easily and hit hard.
The air guys,
Laguna told him, smiling.
Nice, right? Feel the supple dragon skin and the strong fury fragments. How do they fit?
Perfectly, Zell grinned, pulling them over his fists. He tightened his hands, taking a few tests swiped at the air.
Oh, yeah. This is what I'm talking about.
Laguna nodded and looked to Rinoa and Squall. They were standing back, holding hands. He gestured to the big box in between the other plinths.
I made these specially for you too.
The others were all top of the line, unparalleled in their fields. These two weapons though, he had custom made just for them. They didn't even have names yet. One was crafted out of guilt and hopes to mend bridges. The other.
Here you two go,
Laguna said, flipping the latches on the box. He lifted the lid back and revealed the objects nestled within. Rinoa reached out first, releasing Squall's hand. The edge that was nestled into the box had been crafted with her in mind. The white and gold feather was connected to a central disc decorated in turquoise and tiger's eye gemstones. When she pressed the center disc, the single feather spiraled out, unfolding like it would from the blaster. She was left holding a disc of razor-sharp white and gold wings. But it was also lightweight and beautiful.
Do you like it?
Laguna asked, smiling.
It's stunning.
Rinoa touched it gently. Her eyes moved past it to the blaster that was set onto the cushion next to it. She pressed the central disc again, folding the wings together once more. She set it down and picked up the blaster that came with it. Lightweight and made of gold and white materials, it was elegant and beautiful. The golden straps fit snugly over her arm and hand. Squall helped her put it in place, then she fit the edge into it. Unlike her last blaster, that had the trigger on the side of the body, the trigger was against her palm. She could shoot it without needing both hands.
Thank you, President Lawyer,
she beamed at him, lowering her arm. The weapon was very comfortable on her arm. Like it was supposed to be there.
Call me Laguna,
he grinned.
Don't forget to name that beauty. The best weapons have names.
Rinoa smiled as she pressed the release to unfold the wings. They came up and spread out easily, winking in the light. Shining like a star.
Shooting star,
Rinoa said, looking to Squall.
I'm calling it shooting star. Beautiful,
Laguna nodded before turning to him.
So, Squall. Pick up yours. Please.
Squall eyed him for a moment before turning his eyes down to the gunblade that had been resting beside Rinoa's weapon. Cradled against the satin pillow, it was winking up at him. The blade wasn't made of metal. The gleaming blue material was clear and shimmering. beautiful but deadly sharp. The strongest material on the planet. Squall wasn't entirely sure how Laguna had managed to obtain such a large piece that an entire blade could be carved from it. Adamantine. Strong and sharp and incredibly rare. The gun was made of gleaming silver mithril. There was a pouch of pulse ammo beside the gun so Squall could hook it onto his belt. The leather of the pouch was emblazoned with his own lion emblem so it fit in with him. There was a lion head at the end of the gun where it joined the blade, twin paws reaching forward like it was pouncing. And coming off of the gun, almost like it was coming from the lion's back, was a silver wing that acted as a hand guard.
A winged lion,
Rinoa breathed. The wings from her back. The lion from his necklace. Joined together. Squall reached out and picked up the blade. It was heavy, of course it was. But Squall had chosen strength when he had picked his first revolver and it was easy to lift this one. It fit very easily into his hand. Like it was designed for him. It had been designed for him. Reaching into his pocket, Squall pulled out his lion pendant. Notching back the hook, he secured it onto the end of the gun so it dangled like it had from all the gun blades before it.
Lion heart,
Rinoa whispered to him. Squall looked at her. She smiled and he nodded.
Lion heart it is.
Laguna smiled.
You like it?
There was a sheath inside the box. Squall pulled it out and tied it onto his belt. He slipped the lion heart inside. The beautiful blue blade was hidden away, but the gun still showed proud. He rather liked the look of it there. He hooked the ammo box onto his belt. He didn't answer Laguna. Rinoa thanked him profusely for both of them. Everyone armed, they moved back towards the magic cache. Taking one of the capsule cases, Squall hooked it onto his belt. They took their time choosing from the magic available. Thinking of their own affinities, divvying up the choices from that. Selfie picked up a cache filled with Dispel. A magic spell that could break magic. It sapped away the strength of magic barriers. She also found Break, which was used to break down defenses. She hoarded the high-level magic spells, adding them eagerly to her current collection. Irvine picked up Meteor. It was a spell none of them had heard of and needed Laguna to explain. It was used to summon multiple asteroids from the sky to crash against their enemies. It was very powerful and a bit rare. Quistis got Thundaga, of course. She also chose Tornado to match with Pandemona. The two spells together were strong enough to cause a breeze in the room. Quistis smiled at the amount of power running through her now. Zell chose Firaga and Meltdown. Two heat-based spells that Ifrit latched onto eagerly. Rinoa picked Life and Death. Two very powerful spells. Life wouldn't actually save you from true death, but it could reverse the process and awaken the unconscious and allow Firaga to work, which she also picked. The three new spells fit into her easily. She might not need them since she was a sorceress, but she preferred to have them all the same. Squall chose the other death-containing capsule. That magic he set onto his blade. He also picked Blizzaga, junctioning it to Shiva. Then Flare, junctioning it to Bahamut. The two spells were powerful and Squall could almost feel each molecule of water in the air. Like he could reach out and begin gathering them into an icicle if he chose.
I dare say there's no one more prepared for a fight than you all,
Laguna smiled at them.
Now let's get to the Ragnarok. We've got all of existence to save.
Laguna squealed like a little girl when Selfie took to the air. Standing below in the crew launch room, he stared with wide-eyed wonder out of the window. Since Irvine and Selfie were flying the ship, that left only Squall, Rinoa, Zell, and Quistis to witness the event.
This is the best thing ever,
he laughed, watching the land rush under them.
Hey, you think she can get it close to the water? I want to splash. Laguna,
Kiros groaned.
All right.
He turned abruptly, facing the seeds.
We're doing this for real. Straight to our final target, Ultimecia. Let's go over the plan again. First, we enter the lunatic Pandora and rescue Elone. Next, you fight Sorceress Adele. It'll be a surprise attack, show no mercy. Then, here comes the tricky part, Adele will need to pass on her powers before being defeated. Quistis, neither you nor Selfie can be close to her for this and make a mistake. Rinoa, will you be willing to accept them?
Yes, she declared eagerly.
Good.
Laguna nodded.
Next, we wait for Sorceress Ultimecia to possess Rinoa. This part will be hard on you, Rinoa, but will you do it?
She hesitated this time but eventually said, much less enthusiastically, yes.
That's the spirit.
Laguna cheered loudly.
One quick trip back is all it will take, then you guys are heading straight for the future. The present and past are all going to be destroyed in the time compression. Basically, until you kill Ultimecia and reset everything, everything will cease to exist. We have to trust in you for that one. I trust you. So, wait,
Zell frowned.
If time compression destroys everything, how are we supposed to survive? There's only one way to make yourself exist in a world like that,
Laguna grinned.
Rinoa, this one is on you. You have to use your power to keep everyone from being absorbed into time. Believe in your friends' existence, and they'll stay with you all the way. To be friends, to like one another and to love one another, you can't do these things alone. You need somebody.
Quistis laughed at Squall and he gave her a long look.
And when you want to come back, you'll have to work backwards through the decompressing time. What place reminds you of your friends? Imagine being in that place with all your friends. Once time compression ends, think of that place and try to get there. That's all you have to do. That place will welcome you. You'll be able to get there no matter what period you're in. You need love and friendship for this mission. And the courage to believe in it. It's all about love, friendship, and courage. I'm counting on you guys. Woo!
Yipping loudly, Zell ran out. Quistis followed after him, winking at Squall on the way. Rinoa leaned in close and weaved her fingers through Squall's. He sighed.
It sounds corny. But everyone seems to be up for it,
Squall said calmly.
Think it'll work?
Laguna asked hopefully. Squall shrugged.
There's no guarantees about the future. But we'll try.
Squall turned to leave. He didn't get very far before Laguna called out for him. Pausing, he and Rinoa turned back at the same time. Laguna let out a long breath. He looked rather uncertain of himself. Kiros and Ward were watching him with sympathetic gazes. That look in his eyes was back and Squall felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise in anticipation of what he would say.
When this is all over.
He paused, then swallowed hard.
I'd really like to talk to you.
Squall frowned at him. He looked to Kiros for clarification. The more reasonable man wasn't any help at all this time. He smiled sadly.
Squall. You look very much like your mother.
Squall froze. Across from him, Ward nodded, his eyebrow coming up. Kiros grinned and added.
He says, it's a good thing you don't look like your father.
Squall heard Rinoa take in a quick breath as she realized what they were saying. Squall's eyes darted back to Laguna, who was looking at the ground solemnly.
If you don't want to talk, I'll understand.
Laguna looked up to him, his eyes searching Squall's face for something. Squall took a quick step back, pulling on Rinoa.
Come on. We'll be coming up on the Pandora soon,
he said, quickly trying to escape. Rinoa hesitated only a moment before following after him as he ran from the room. The door shut behind them and Laguna let out a long breath.
Damn!
He groaned, his fists tightening. He was having to fight back tears here.
You did well, Laguna,
Kiros told him gently.
It's the best you can reasonably hope for. Damn!
Laguna leaned over, his leg cramping painfully in nervousness. For what they were doing. For what he had just done. This was so much more painful than he imagined. And the worst part was thinking that he had just met him, and there was a chance he was never going to see Squall again. End of chapter.